What's up?
Cody, my man, how you doing, my man?
I'm good, brother. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem, and welcome, and yeah, no, thank you for taking the time.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah, so how are you feeling, and how's fight camp so far?
It's been really good. I've got a lot of notice for this fight. I think I had like 12 to 14 weeks or something, which is more than you usually get. I was never really out of the gym. I think I took a couple weeks after my last fight, but I was pretty much right back in. And it was good to get a name early and then kind of just be able to prepare for that style of opponent. But yeah, it's been good. Camp's been good. Me, Dustin Jacoby, Josh Fremd, and Rob Wilkinson, all guys who have huge fights coming up. We're all in camp together. We're all kind of fighting within 2 to 3 weeks of each other. So it's been a good push in the gym for sure.
Yeah, I do want to touch upon that. But other than that, I know that you got a lot of notes, so you have a lot of time. Obviously, you're a family man. Respectfully, your wife Amanda, also a fighter. That being said, having a lot of that time and not being so pressured, having a short camp, has that been helpful in any way?
Yeah, for sure. I signed a new contract for this fight. Um, and I was working part-time before I took this fight, and I was able to kind of just focus on fighting. Which has been good, and I've been able to be home more with my daughter and my wife, which is just better for me in general. And but yeah, I mean, my wife gets it. She's a boss. She's been in the highest level like I am, so she gets the sacrifice. She kind of gets when I have late nights, early mornings, and I'm not around as much during fight camp. She gets it. She doesn't put a ton of pressure on me to um, even really balance things out. Balance is important for sure, but she gets it. She knows like the stresses and the pressure of what fight camp entails, and it's a good dynamic for us. I just have to make up the time when I don't have a fight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think it might have been your last post fight interview. You talked a lot about sometimes being a father is harder, it's scarier than fighting. What would you say would be the toughest challenge being a father and a fighter at the same time?
I think, like I said, just the balance. Like my daughter, for instance. So I was at training yesterday, and she took 2 steps, which I haven't seen, and I wasn't home to see that. And I feel like I just miss milestones sometimes, which is unfortunate, and it's a bummer. Um, and you kind of feel guilty because fighting is very selfish, and it's like, okay, I got to look out for me, and by looking out for me and making sure that I'm doing everything I can to be successful in the long run, obviously it's going to be better for my family. But it is tough when you feel like you're missing milestones. You feel like you're missing important things that are happening, not just for my daughter, but also for my wife. So that's tough. Definitely the balance of being a father, being a husband, and then also, having to commit to like 100%. If I'm not committed 100%, like there's a big risk factor in terms of like I don't just go lose a game. Like I potentially get knocked unconscious or broken limbs, or like the damage and the results can be catastrophic if I'm not prepared. So I feel like it's harder to balance knowing that the outcome can be devastating, if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%. I mean, fighting in general is very difficult, but when you have a family, and for myself, I'm preparing for a bodybuilding show, so it is a bit of a selfish game. It's you want to be there for your family, but you do have to be able to take care of you. So totally understand, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, talking a little bit about your career here, obviously inside the UFC, you kind of had some up and downs with the Contender Series, and then you went in LFA, getting a finish there, and then now you're riding two fight first round finishes. Now you're going for the third. How do you feel about riding that momentum?
Yeah, I feel like momentum's huge in this sport because it just breeds confidence, and you have to be confident to be successful. But I feel lucky. I've been fortunate. I've got to fight back to back with Dustin Jacoby, who's one of my good friends, but also my main training partner, and I've been able to ride his momentum. He got a big win, and then I fought the week after him, was able to win, and then last time we just flipped roles. I fought before him, got a win, and then he won right after me. So I think just keeping that momentum, and not just mine, but the whole team. Factory X is having a great year this year, and I definitely feel that. Going into my fights, I feel riding the wave of that momentum, and it definitely makes it easier to perform. I feel like because I know I'm prepared, I know I'm doing the right things because not only do I see it in my results, I see it in all my teammates' results. You know, they're all doing the same thing I'm doing. So when I see them have success and I know that what they're doing is successful for them, I'm doing the same stuff. So it's going to be successful for me as well.
You typically see a lot of teammates fight on the same night or during the same time period. Are you one to kind of shy away from the TV preparing for like when you're warming up for your fight?
Um, I don't know. I'm in and out. You know, I'll tune in just to kind of see like what the pace of the card is going to be, just to kind of see when I'm coming up. I don't pay too much attention to it. Not that it like really bothers me or that it like bumps my nerves up or anything. You know, I'm just kind of busy doing my warm up, kind of trying to lock in and zone in for my fight and just think about the things I have to do. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm definitely watching. You know, I'm in and out. Like I said, they have a TV in the back in the warm up room, so I'm definitely tuning in and paying attention to what's going on. And but I don't really. It doesn't bother me too much. It doesn't get me too high or low. I know I have some teammates that if they're watching it, you know, if it's a crazy fight, then they're getting exhausted just watching it. So they tend to avoid it. But I'm not that way.
Course. Now let's talk about you here. You got a big fight November 19th with Rodolfo. Um, I think some would see this as the classic wrestler versus all around kind of guy. Do you feel the same way?
Um, I don't know. I feel like he's thought of as a jiu-jitsu guy. I'm thought of as a wrestler, but I don't think his striking is that bad. I think he's made a lot of improvements in his striking. If you watch like his last few fights, I mean, the guy outstruck Chris Curtis in their first round, and Chris Curtis is a super legit striker. Um, so I feel like he doesn't get the credit he deserves. I think he's super well rounded. I think I'm well rounded. But yeah, I definitely think on paper people are looking at it like American wrestler versus Brazilian jiu-jitsu artist or whatever, you know, like because people like to do that, like the UFC one boxer versus kickboxer or wrestler versus jujitsu or whatever. They like to put you in your style. I feel like nowadays though, like pretty much everyone is just pretty well rounded. You don't find too many guys that are just a specialist. Not that they aren't out there, but typically if you're just a specialist, you're not going to survive long in MMA. I mean, uh, look at guys uh, like Ben Askren, for instance. You know, he was just a wrestler. He was just a specialist in wrestling, and his career like was going really well, obviously. But then he got in the UFC against guys who were pretty good everywhere, and he struggled a little bit. And then even like guys like Izzy, who came from a kickboxing background, you've seen the improvements he's made in his grappling game, in his anti wrestling, and things like that. So. I don't think anybody anymore in the UFC is really just a one trick pony, but I definitely feel like on paper people are looking at it like, oh, wrestler versus jiu-jitsu guy. But I think I respect him everywhere, and I think he's solid everywhere. I think he gets a bad rap because of that fluffy fight. Uh, and unfortunately, I just think that was a bad night in the office for him. I think he's much better than that fight. I think he's had some good bounce back. Even though he lost to Chris Curtis, he looked pretty good in that fight. His cardio looked good. His striking looked good. But yeah, I mean, I like the matchup. But I agree. Yeah, I do think people are looking at it on paper as wrestler versus jiu-jitsu guy.
Cody, you've talked nothing but respect about your opponent. But realistically, in this fight, you're coming to win. Where do you see yourself winning this fight, and why is this a tough matchup for him?
I think I'm the best wrestler he's ever fought, for sure. He is a getting better in all aspects of MMA, but I just feel like once you get tired and you kind of go into autopilot, his autopilot is to grapple and get to jujitsu. I think I present a hard challenge in terms of taking me down and getting me to the mat. Um, I think Chris Curtis is a great fighter. I've rolled with Chris Curtis years ago. I'm a much better wrestler than Chris Curtis, and he was 0 for 20, I think, on takedowns against Chris. I just don't see him being able to dictate where the fight takes place, and I feel like that's going to be a hard time for him. I think that's what makes it a really hard matchup for him. I carry power on my feet. I can hurt you on the feet, and if you can't get me to your wheelhouse when you're hurt, I think that presents issues for sure.
Cody, this is gonna be your fourth fight in the UFC. You've signed a new contract. This potentially could be another first round if you finish, if you really want it. That being said, getting through this fight, I understand you're focused on your opponent, Rodolfo, but given things go well, where do you see yourself going up in the rankings? Is there someone that you a couple guys you're eyeing?
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely guys that I'm looking at. I feel like there's a lot of good matchups for me outside the top 15, right at like 15, 14. I feel like if I beat Rodolfo, I'm probably like still like 2 or 3 away from really knocking on the door of those rankings. I think I know Chris beat him and then got ranked 15. I just think Chris is a 30 fight vet, and I feel like that plays a factor. I'm still super young in the game. This will only be my 11th professional fight, like you said, only my 4th fight in the UFC. So I'm not in a huge hurry, man. I'm not rushing to get to the rankings, but there's guys out there. I've called for the Andre Petrosky fight since my debut. So I mean, that's a guy that I think I match up well with. He has a good hot streak he's riding right now. I like that fight a lot. There's other guys too. Like guys that are coming off Contender Series, guys that are coming off the Ultimate Fighter, things like that. I feel like we're all very similar in our career, whereas we're young. We don't have a ton of experience. But there's guys that are having success, and the thing about the UFC is if you're winning and you're putting together a streak, they're going to put you against other winners, so the fights don't ever get easier when you're winning, but that's something to look forward to. Like you said, climb the ranks.
And then again, I'm going to bring back to the point that you made about you and your teammates. Like a lot of guys in your camp right now are all fighting. Um, some guys I'm just naming off, yeah, like Rob Wilkinson, he's a middleweight as well. Is that kind of a guy that you've been spending more time with, based upon weight class? Who are you training with most?
I would say I probably train with Dustin the most. He's a 205er. Rob's up at 205 now, fighting in PFL. He's fighting for the PFL world title November 25th, and he's huge, man. He's probably I don't know how the guy ever made middleweight. I'm gonna be honest. He's like 6'4", 235. He's giant. So me and him definitely get our rounds in. Especially he's got a fight. He's fighting Omari Akhmedov. I'm kind of a good stylistic look for that fight. So me and him have been getting a lot of rounds in. But yeah, I got him. Josh Frem's a 185er. He gives me that like tall, long kickboxer look. He has a fight coming up. He's one of my good training partners. And then yeah, like I said, Dustin and me, we're grinding every day. So I got a good stable of guys, and those are just the guys in the big promotions. I got guys that fight in LFA that are super solid on the come up, and you'll be seeing them in the UFC in the next year or two for sure.
And you just named somebody, Josh. I'm not, if my memory corrects me, he's fighting your former opponent, Tresean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you been able to give him a couple pointers here and there, like what to look for, what you read in that fight, as short as it was?
Yeah, I actually Josh was booked to fight him and then got injured, and then I kind of slid in there, took the fight, beat him, and then they rebooked him and Tresean or whatever. But yeah, I just told him, man, straight up, like Josh is a killer, and I was like, if you just go be you, I spar Josh and I fought Tresean. I'm like, it's not comparable. Like Josh is a much better fighter. Just having been in there with both guys, I'm honest, and Josh is much better. He has more weapons. He has more ways to hurt you. He has sneaky power. I was like, if you just go be yourself, and you get rolling downhill, like you don't want that kid rolling downhill on you. So you got to kind of initiate. You got to set the pace. You got to dictate. And if he does those things, I think you'll see a highlight reel knockout. Josh is super dangerous, man, and he's super talented. I'm super excited for him.
You're a successful young up and comer. Where do you credit your success from?
Oh man, I feel like I'm the most spoiled person in life in general, man. I feel like I'm spoiled with my wife. She does so much for me and in our family that allows me to just focus on fighting. Whether it be making my meals, taking care of my daughter, making sure all her appointments are set, everything. Like I don't have to worry about anything. I get to just be fun dad. I get to just hang out with my daughter and be the fun time. She handles all the business things. And then obviously at the gym, I'm so spoiled. My coach gives me as many private lessons as I want. He works with me nonstop. I always joke with him. I feel like he spends more time, or I know he spends more time with me than his own kids. So I just feel super lucky, man. I'm super spoiled. I have tons of support around me. I would be nowhere close to where I'm at without those guys, and the only reason I'm going to make it to where I want to make it is because of all the people I have around me. So I'm super appreciative of them and just all the time and effort that they give me.
And looking at some matchups here, first off with middleweight, there you got Adesanya and Pereira. Obviously, they've fought a few times in kickboxing, but now we're talking MMA. So UFC 281. Who do you have in that fight realistically?
So I initially I was like, oh, Pereira's gonna beat him. He's already beat him a couple times, right? I went back and watched their kickboxing fights, like Izzy said to, because I was like, maybe I'm missing something. I went back and watched him. First fight, Izzy definitely got robbed. Second fight, Izzy had Pereira on skates multiple times, hurt him bad a few times. And then obviously he got knocked out, which is obviously is something that can happen when you're fighting one of the best strikers in the world. I just think Izzy's style translates better to MMA than Pereira's. Izzy never, other than that Gaslam fight, I never saw Izzy have any issues. And that was when Gaslam was in his prime. That was a tough fight to take. But other than that guy, he's cruised through everyone. And people can say it's boring. People can say whatever they want. He's made it look super easy. Whereas with Pereira, he has struggled a little bit, even against even in fights where he's got finishes like that Michaelitis fight. He struggled that first round. He lost that first round against a guy who realistically can't strike with him at all. You know what I mean? And against that in that Souza fight, it was a super close fight. So I just think Izzy translates a little better. I think Izzy outpoints him, avoids the big shot. People will still hate and be like, "Oh, it's super boring," but I think Izzy gets it done for sure.
And most recently, we have a huge card coming up, UFC 280. You got the lightweights there, or excuse me, you have Oliveira and Makachev. Realistically, who do you have in that fight?
I think Oliveira, man, I feel like he's super underrated. Obviously, he's gotten a lot more shine since he won the belt and has had these great performances, but I still think he's underrated. I think he might have the best clinch in the UFC right now. I don't think people talk about his clinch enough. I don't think people talk about his body work enough. Like he beat Dustin Poirier just with that teep. Like that teep set the tone for the whole fight and allowed him to win. I think he has a lot of weapons. He can hurt you on the feet. He's shown now that he's durable. He won't quit. He's dangerous off his back. He's obviously dangerous if he can get on your back. He has good wrestling. I just think he's super, super dangerous, super, super talented. And I know Islam's really good. But we don't know how Islam will respond to getting hurt. And I feel like Charles can definitely hurt him. And say what you want. People have said that Charles is a quitter, but in his last few fights, he's shown that he's not. And we don't know how Islam's going to respond to that adversity that he's going to meet. I know he's going to meet it. It's just going to be interesting to see how he responds. But yeah, I like Charles. He's the champ for a reason. He's beat way better competition than Islam, and I think he keeps the belt.
And just quickly, I don't know if you saw. I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but there was a video of Oliveira with the tiger. I think it was.
Yeah, he
Did you
pulled
get
out the Mike
that?
Tyson stop, huh?
Yeah, yeah. What do you think about that?
I mean, that's cool for them. You're not going to catch me near a tiger. Uh, that's not my idea of fun or cool. So I'm gonna stay away from the big cats. But yeah, I feel like I don't know. Not for me, but he looked cool doing it. He looked a lot cooler than I would look doing it. He wasn't sweating the tiger at all. So yeah, good for him.
I think somebody in the comments was joking. They said he's more like instead of getting like mauled to death, he's more likely he's gonna put that tiger in a rear naked choke. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not good off my back, so I would definitely be more worried than Charles Oliveira probably.
Absolutely. Lastly, though, I just want to end it off a little fun here. For obviously you're preparing for a fight. What's going to be your cheat meal, or what is a cheat meal for you after every fight?
So I'm fortunate, man. I don't cut a ton of weight. I eat pretty healthy, but I don't have to, man. I can pretty much eat whatever I want. I have really good metabolism. I probably walk at like 205, 208.
Yes,
And so
guy.
my weight cuts aren't bad. But I know like after weigh-ins, me, my manager, my team, everyone who's out there with me, we go to Fleming Steakhouse. I get 18-ounce steak, loaded mashed potatoes. I get the work. So that's always my go-to pre-fight meal, and I'll keep that the same for sure.
Excellent. Well, Cody, it's been a pleasure having you on. I don't want to take much more of your time. I know you have a fight booked. So good luck on November 19th, and we'll talk again soon, okay?
Yeah, thanks for having me, brother. Appreciate you.